Welcome to Coffee Charged Conversations here at Real Global Productions. Today we are joined by one of my good friends, Nikyle Reddy, who I actually met in my varsity days. And I don't know where I really met you or why we crossed paths, but I've always had really interesting conversations with you, and I know that you a very deep person. You like to share your emotions, and just a good soul, an old soul.
You are too kind, hey? No, dude, that means a lot, bro. And it's nice to be on here. I mean, it's a great opportunity to be able to speak about very important things and also just to have a chat with you again, bro. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I feel like things get very busy, especially after university, and it's tough to, keep up to date with friends and people around you. And that's also why I'm very excited for today's conversation.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think you put it perfectly. And the current time that we're going through right now, dude, I don't know if you feel like super tired, man. Like,
I do.
Like really exhausted after a day of work, and it's quite difficult to go through this period of life, when you start working and things like that. People always say you need to get into a good routine. You need to wake up early, go to bed early, those types of things, get a schedule that helps, and you get all of those things, and then it still feels as if you're not accomplishing what you want.
100%. I feel like for some reason, I used to be one of those people, like at work, I used to like count the clock in my early jobs, whatever, same kind of thing at school.
100%. And now it gets to 2 p.m. and then you're like, oh, I can't wait until and the hours go by or the minutes go by like hours. Do you know?
Yeah. And now it honestly feels like life is so rushed. Like in the week, on the weekend, I kind of feel like I'm just trying to get everything done, and it's impossible. It's hard to like slow down a little bit.
Where's time for Mike? Where's time for Nick, dude? Where's time for us to chill? But I mean, it's one of those things, dude. It's like saying everybody's going through it, which kind of gives you a bit of hope to push on as well,
Yeah.
And like a very big thing for me recently has been how to deal with anxiety. I'd walk into my office and, I'd just get there and I'd feel like super anxious for no reason, dude. I'd feel like a conversation that's happening in the corner of the room is about me. And it's like, why am I thinking in that way? Like, what is the reason? And after doing a lot of self-reflecting, I realized that, we grew up relatively similarly, quite privileged, had the opportunity to go to decent schools and get a decent education, had the opportunity to go to varsity. And despite all those things being good and everything going really well, I mean, you still look back and you think, wow, high school was pretty pretentious. And the types of people that we were around and that we met, you know what I'm talking about, right? When you have that type of, you have to match somebody's competitive, it's like competitive.
Yeah, but you also like, speaking for myself, like tried to be someone I'm not to impress other people. And I did. Like, it's weird because it's like you're doubting yourself, but so some people think it's not an ego thing. I actually believe it is. Like, if I go into a room and I automatically think that people are talking about me in a weird way, even if I don't have the most self-confidence at that time, whatever, that's quite like self-absorbing, thinking that
people are talking about you,
they really
right?
care that much about me. That
the ego is such an interesting concept, dude. Like, it can be boosted, it can be amplified in that sense, but it also can be brought down.
Yeah.
Right. And finding the balance of your ego is something that, because somebody will tell you that you're shy or that you're not confident enough, right? But somebody will tell you that you're arrogant then based on, where do you find the middle ground, dude? And that's what I feel like when it comes to anxiety, you're right, the ego plays a massive role in it.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's currently the path and the journey that I'm going on right now. So I haven't even given a bit of background on me, dude, and I'm a guest on this thing. So I'm Nikyle. Hi, everyone. No, I'm joking. I think I'm currently going through a journey in my life where there is a promotion in my space on the horizon, which for me is something that I never really looked towards. You know, I am in sales. I have been in sales for the last 4 years. How that journey started was literally me picking up a phone, realizing that I can talk shit to people over the phone.
Yeah.
And that turned into like this, like I kind of developed a passion for it. I wanted to speak to people over the phone. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel shy or anything like that. I just like wanted to pick up the phone and phone people. And I was working for an insurance company at the time, so that really like assisted me in growth in terms of a career. And it's kind of led me to where I am now, which is the journey that I'm starting to get this promotion. And it's like, it's pretty cool to be here, but at the same time, it's like, had I not learned what I've learned throughout my life to get to this point and made the mistakes that I've made, and I made a lot of mistakes, a real like bad.
But it's almost like when you make the mistakes, that's what you learn from. You know, like you don't learn from someone telling you, "Oh, Nick, you're not doing the right thing. Yeah, I would have done it differently." You go, "Oh, okay," but you don't really get me. You know?
It's quite. I always find it like cliche, but at the same time, you know, when something that's cliche is real, like, and it's relevant, like it still matters. You know? And the mistakes that I've made in my life have led me to a place where I can now look back on them and not feel bad about sharing them. And I think that's also another reason why I'm here. I've recently come into my own, and I want to start sharing the types of mistakes that I've made in my life. So maybe that somebody out there can listen to it and, you know, not feel bad about making that mistake as well.
And you did your first ice bath this morning.
Oh yeah, that was another mistake that I've made in my life. Hey?
How was that?
It was, you know, I've never done an ice bath before, obviously. It was you get in there and you basically just, your life changes immediately. I don't know. It's so weird. It's like an instant shock. And yeah, I had a couple beers last night, and obviously those beers were not there after that ice bath. They had no residual effects at all. But yeah, crazy experience.
What an interesting experience. I didn't expect that at all today. I mean, you got there, you went in your first attempt of the ice bath was probably about 7.
You're gonna expose me, hey, that I had to do it twice because the first one wasn't as long.
Well, we've got a leaderboard, and I did tell you this beforehand.
Yes,
and you said
I was not in competition, hey, even from when you told me.
You said that you'd have a chance towards the bottom. And I think the first attempt was about 7 or 8 seconds. And got out, and I was actually quite shocked. I was. And we met another guy there this morning, and that was the crazy thing. And he said, "You know what? Give it another try. Like, you know, why not?"
It's quite random that we ran into somebody so positive, dude, on like such a day, like when we're coming to do.
Unbelievable! It almost set the tone for the day. He was just so helpful. He didn't know who you were. He didn't work there. He just finished his 10-minute ice bath, and then he's like, "Dude, you know what? We'll help you. We'll talk you through it." It didn't help too much. I think you got 12. I think you got 12 seconds the second time, but
definitely less comforting than I expected it to be. I thought it would be that soft, like kind voice, you know. And he was like, "Dude, you got this. Don't worry. What's your name?" "Oh, I'm Matt." "Oh, cool." I was like, "Okay, yeah." But no, it was a great experience, and it was quite an interesting morning. We have a lot of fun times together, Marco. Some random fun times.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, that's what life's about. It's not always about that routine and that hectic schedule. Sometimes, you know, you find amazing moments in the spontaneity.
Yeah, that's very interesting, dude. Spontaneity, right? I've never really looked much into the idea of being spontaneous. I feel as if I'm very fearful. I feel as if I'm very scared of a lot of things, dude, which is weird. And I don't know where that developed from. It might have come from relationship with family and fear of disappointment in that sense, but it's like branched out into fear of stupid stuff, dude. Like being scared of an ice pot, being scared of, it's like my body right now is not in as good of touch with my mind. And it's cool that I'm allowed, it's cool that I'm able to say it though, because it means that I am going through this reflection period, you know what I mean? Like where I'm learning a lot about myself and how to better myself. But then comes the thing of what is the right way to do something?
Yeah.
Like, is the right way what somebody else has told you? Or is the right way to do something or the right way to act how you want to act? And that's a very big conundrum that I'm currently going through. And I mention the anxiety thing because it speaks to the fear of being able to do certain things, Like I'd sometimes put off going to see friends and socializing. And you remember me from varsity, dude. I used to be very social.
Yes.
And I've kind of stopped because I have this fear that, it's not going to be the same interaction that it was before. People have changed. I've changed. Maybe I'm not as funny as I used to be. Maybe I'm not as like cool as I used to be.
But is that like you seeing that you were trying to maybe people please a bit or trying to be a version of what other people wanted you to be instead of who you actually were?
100%, dude. Back then, I think, and back to what we were talking about, our high school and varsity and things like that, there was always this need to impress, whether it would be with your friends or whether it would be with academics or sport or anything like that. And I think there was always that need to impress if you were an outsider. If you weren't an outsider and you were one of the popular kids, and you must bear in mind, I'm speaking very like retrospectively here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put myself back into that headset that I was in grade 11 and grade 12, where I would do anything just to, get a laugh out of somebody or you become popular or, you know what I mean? And it came to a point where in my life, I realized I was doing it for people pleasing.
And they often say that people that are humorous, I've heard it quite a few times, that people that are like usually the funny ones are actually, they've been dealing with the most trauma from their childhood. Yeah. And they've felt times of like extreme depression and loneliness. And sometimes it's even like a family member. Maybe they had a depressed dad and they've been from a young age without even noticing it, trying to help their dad feel a little bit happier, so they're always the one making jokes and people see it as like the funniest, most positive person I know. But a lot of the time the funny ones are like going through the tough things.
One of the biggest jack in the boxes I've ever seen, dude. It's like that idea of I've had a friend who's passed away and who committed suicide. And they must have been one of the most bubbliest people that I've ever met before in my life and the most free-spirited. And like you were saying, that type of stuff happens. It's probably a very common thing that and I don't want to make it a controversial or anything like that or sad. I mean, like we hold this person's memory in great regard and things like that. But it is very strange how we as people think that like our humor and our sense of humor and things like that is almost like a deflecting technique that we have to not make people worry about us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense or along that line.
But that's why I think it's important to have conversations like this,
Coffee charged
conversations.
Oh, speaking about that humor thing, don't worry, I'm okay. Don't stress. All is good. No.
I'll check up on you in a week's time.
Yeah, I might need it.
You're welcome.
Especially after this incredibly strong coffee. Hey, wow.
It's been black coffee in these last few episodes. It's actually been I've actually enjoyed it, but it's something very new for me.
It gets the blood going.
Yeah.
It's like an ice bar.
Like an ice bar. And going back to fear, I've never been overseas before. I know you work in the travel industry, and I'm going to Arizona in a few weeks' time for first time ever going overseas. I lived in Tanzania for a year, and that's the closest I've been outside the country. And I think I've always had quite a big fear about moving overseas, going overseas. It's like a complete different culture, and you're meeting people that you haven't dealt with before. You know, they might see the world completely differently to the way that I do. And I don't know if a lot of people feel like that, but I sometimes think like maybe fear's holding me back a little bit. And like I've got friends that have gone overseas, they've traveled and maybe taken a gap year or whatever. What do you think about the idea of taking a gap year after school or after varsity? When do you think is like the best time to do it? And do you think it's like necessary?
Yo, probably one of my biggest regrets was not taking a gap year straight after school. I think that time when you have that time alone, when you travel around the world or something like that, where you get an opportunity to work for that year, you get, it's kind of introspective, and you learn a lot more about yourself. I mean, throughout varsity, you know, it was kind of chaotic. As much as you were an academic and things like that, you had a social life and all that stuff. You spent a lot of time around your peers, so you didn't have the opportunity to be alone. Personally, I would recommend to everyone, unless you are certain of what you want to do in life and like 100% certainty, I would say take a gap year and travel. I would say take a gap year and work as well if you can't afford to travel. I mean, and if you start enjoying what you do, there's no pressure to study. I mean, there is this idea that it's very well noted that you need to study in university to get a degree, to get equal opportunity in South Africa, right?
Yeah,
Around the
it
world.
kind of just like gives you a foot in the door sometimes. Like,
But people pave their own paths.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that whole idea of being stuck on, you know, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this in order to be successful is bullshit. Come on. Like, you can do certain things, yes, to guide your path to where, you know, you wanted to go, but that has to be your choice, dude.
yeah.
And that's the thing about traveling. That's quite cool. It's cool to hear that you're going overseas, and it's cool to hear that you're going to Arizona, and it can be exciting and frightening.
Yeah.
But the industry of travel is very personal. It's not like like I said earlier, I'm in sales and travel, right?
Yes.
So I speak to a lot of clients about their business travel arrangements, and as much as it's business, the relationships between the travel managers and the clients are personal. They are personal relationships.
Yeah.
This is something exciting. This is something that you need to look forward to, because it's an opportunity to go and experience something you've never experienced before. And you said this is your first time, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also be nervous.
Yeah. But in saying that, I think like sometimes I feel as if me not taking that opportunity to go overseas has made my perspective on the world much smaller. Do you think it's important though to like get out of your hometown? Do you think it has any impact on your mindset?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, how many friends of ours do we know now living in the UK?
Yeah.
And do you ever ask them how they're doing? Like, and how's life going on there and things like that? I mean,
Yeah.
they come back with similar responses, I'm sure. It's tough everywhere. I think the idea of, so I've actually got a friend, right, whose parents live in the UK, and they've lived in South Africa for 18 years, 19 years. Their parents moved when they were 19, and the kid actually decided to stay in South Africa, right? And the reason why is because they believe that there's a massive opportunity in this country, and it's a beautiful country to live in. So it's like a hit or a miss, you know. And I'm very much on the fence when it comes to leaving because of a situation and staying because of comfortability.
I'm also in that predicament.
It's weird, hey? It's like, because people always talk about leaving, you know, you want to get out of South Africa.
And they make it so glamorous, but the main objective for leaving is financial.
Yeah, 100%.
It's always the biggest talking point about it is I want to make money. And that can be a little bit difficult because obviously I feel like South Africa, it is harder to make money than overseas. I mean, I was chatting to someone yesterday who was like a bus driver in Australia, and the amount of money he made was ridiculous. But I think travel is important, and it's weird for me to say that because I'm not really much of a traveler myself. In my job, I get to travel quite a lot in the golf industry, like around South Africa, and I go to a lot of small towns, and I've really enjoyed that. I pick up something from each place that I go to.
Yeah, dude, you are blessed, hey? I'm not gonna lie, that is a very cool job to do.
Thank
But
you.
I mean, are you enjoying it as well? Is it something that you envisioned yourself doing like a couple of years ago? You know?
I mean, it's quite weird the way the world works. I didn't expect to be. I wanted to be a professional golfer. That was my main dream. And in varsity, I didn't really practice as much. I was more focused on the social life and making more friends and getting myself comfortable living in a new city like Pretoria. That actually the golf took a bit of a backseat. And yeah, now I'm working in the golf industry and it's awesome. I never thought I'd be here, but I'm grateful that I am.
Full circle, eh? Would you ever, so would that job allow opportunities to go overseas maybe and test out courses overseas and rate courses overseas?
Perhaps, yeah. You never know what the future holds. It's like that guy who we met today in the ice bath. I mean,
yeah.
I never expected to really chat to anyone at the ice bath place. Usually, they're not very chatty because they're just there to get the ice bath done, freeze and get out of there, And so I don't know what the future holds. But going back to travel.
Sorry, the reason why I was asking that is because I told you I'm a salesperson in travel, dude. As soon as you start going, you know to phone first. But yeah.
Yeah, so going back to travel, I think finance is a barrier especially for people our age in general. And what advice would you have for people like youngsters, people living on a student budget? What advice would you have for them wanting to travel overseas on a smaller budget?
Okay. Firstly, I'll tell them that South Africa is a beautiful country and that budget will probably get you a lot more happiness here than it would overseas. But if your dream is to really go overseas, I think you need to align your savings with what you want to do when you go overseas. I think that's very important. I think if you want to go overseas to go sightsee, that doesn't cost a lot of money at the end of the day. So you can afford to do it and, make your choices on accommodation and things like that. You're not going to go and stay at a 5-star hotel then.
Yeah.
You're going to stay at a 2-star hotel. Travel can become expensive depends on what the preferences are. So, for example, if you go stay, let's use Ireland. Ireland's quite a cool example because you don't need a visa to travel.
Yes.
Okay, so that takes away an initial cost of what, 2,500 rand.
Is that just as a South African, or is it?
I'm not too
like
sure
worldwide
how it is, but there are a lot of countries in the world where you don't need a visa to visit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Ireland is one of them. And the reason why I use Ireland as this example is because they have backpackers in Ireland, right? Like places that you can stay for and it's cheap, dude. It's like 50 euros, 50 pounds, 20 pounds, some places. You're not going to get the luxury, but what are you going to do in Ireland? You're going to go hiking. You're going to go sightsee. You're going to go, that's the main tourist attractions there. So if you're planning on traveling to Europe and, going into Spain or Netherlands or those countries, at the end of the day, you got to face reality and you got to know that you need savings.
Yeah.
You need a budget that you'll be able to spend there and come back to and still be in good stead.
Yeah.
In the day and age that we live in, that's very difficult to achieve without either funding from, either parents or working for a very long period of time. So if I were to give people advice, it would be that make sure that your preferences and where you want to go and what you want to do, you lay out in an itinerary, you know what you're doing, you're budgeting accordingly for it. And then you go, and then you have the time of your life probably, because you have no worries, no financial worries whilst you're
Yeah.
there. And yeah, isn't it funny how finances are always a burden in life, dude? It's actually
always
so frustrating.
Yeah, it relates to everything. And whether I like it or not, I think about it daily, you know,
Yeah.
like finances and how they can hold you back sometimes, but also if you do the right thing, they might really help you. So in varsity, like a lot of people say, as soon as I said
stories,
varsity,
no
you got
stories.
scared. So like a lot of people say, we should start a band, or like, you know, if you watch How I Met Your Mother, they go like, we should start a bar. And I've had those conversations, and I'm sure you have too. But you actually did start a 2-man band called Dani in your university days. How did that start, and where is it at now?
Yeah, so Dani the band, whatever you want to call it, dude, is an interesting story in the beginning. So I was going through quite a rough time. A lot in my life was changing. I was living on my friend's couch. I'd just broken up with my ex-girlfriend. Things were tough, dude. Like financially, I was jobless. I mean, I was spending my weekends drinking in Pretoria with very bad influences of friends. And one day after a night out in Pretoria, actually, I came home. It was a very rough night out, and I was feeling it the next morning. And I saw my friend whose place I was staying at. And he was chilling on the couch, and he was still awake. And it was like 7 a.m. And I was like, dude, it's a Saturday. Like, why are you awake? And he was like, nah, I just couldn't sleep. So I was like, well, do you want to talk? And usually we don't like have those types of conversations, if you know what I mean. It's very like a
surface level.
Yeah. We mates, you know, we've been mates. We talk about funny things, but we never talk about deep stuff.
Yeah.
And we just started just talking about our lives. And we started talking about like what we felt in life we hadn't accomplished yet, if that kind of makes sense.
Wow.
And he's got a very good mind. He's got a great mind and a very interesting mind. You know him. He's a crazy fellow, but like
I've seen him pick up a car before.
Okay,
I'm not even joking. Someone parked in the wrong spot. He picks up the car and moved it like this. And like, just to think of you guys together having this conversation is so strange for me to picture, because you guys are like polar opposites in looks and like so many ways, and it's so cool to think like of you guys having this deep conversation.
I feel as if he's an introvert and I'm an extrovert, you know, in that sense. But we started talking what one commonality that we share is movies, dude. We love movies.
Yeah.
Movies, and that kind of led us to talking about like, oh, dude, what, you know, like, let's get creative with this stuff. We obviously can't make a movie because we don't have the facilities for that.
Yeah.
But wait, we can, you know, show off our art in a different way.
Yeah.
And we just went on GarageBand, started messing around with some beats. Then he started singing, and I was like, no flipping ways. No ways. Dude.
Yeah. When I listen to it, I can't picture it being his voice.
It's insane. Like,
it's like a rugby player.
Yeah.
Like singing better than like Rihanna.
It's like Skulkberger coming on Idols, bro, and starting to sing Fred Astaire, you know? Like, that is...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Frank Sinatra, that's the line I was going for, not Fred Astaire. But it was quite cool, dude. It was quite cool to see this person have a talent, you know, and that motivated me to want to make the music cool, dude.
Yeah.
And that's how we started that journey. And it's quite frankly, it's just right now an outlet for me to just let off some energy, you know, let off some steam. I enjoy it. dude, I enjoy it more than anything else that I've done in life. And it's given me a sense of like accomplishment, you know, when I make a song, when I produce a song and I get feedback from a mate and he says, this is great. It's like, dude, that means so much.
Now it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means those hours of sitting there messing around with these things, just moving like stems into certain places, moving
Yes.
these midis on tracks into certain places. It's like, it can be almost like you feel as if you're not getting anywhere, dude. You're re-listening to a song over and over again to try to find how to change it, and you're not getting anywhere. And to have somebody with me on this journey is so cool, dude. I appreciate him a lot, and he's got an incredible talent in lyric writing and singing. So kind of cool that we just ended up doing that. It was just so random.
You've also got like I say, a bit of an old soul. Like whenever like you play music, it's often from like 70s, 80s.
Yeah,
and I think
dude.
you bring that aspect to Dani. And I mean, I was just sitting yesterday. I had 2 of the songs already on my phone, and I listened to the other 2, and I love them. Like I really, really do. And I just think it's so
that means
cool.
a lot, Mark.
Yeah, he has one of those times where someone says it's great. But I really, and I think people should definitely listen to your music. It's alternative, but it's so cool. Like the names of the songs. Number 1, you've got Kathmandu. I don't know a song called Kathmandu.
We've got weird mindsets, so. But if you're normal, then it's boring. You know,
exactly.
It's not fun if you're normal. And that's the thing, dude. I suck at making lyrics. Like my lyrics are terrible. My lyrics will be something like, "Hey, where'd you go? I miss you so." Like, it's devastating. So to have so a lot of that influence definitely comes from my bandmate.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we gel really well, you know?
Yeah.
On that 70s and 80s thing,
yes.
Bro, do you feel as if this is, and tell me if I'm wrong, right? It's like a timeless generation almost. It's the 70s and the 80s were the beginning of music, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think you had influences like New Order coming out in the 80s, right? Which developed the techno that we're kind of listening to right 100%.
Now. 100%. You know who Dani reminds me of the most? Depeche Mode.
Oh, that is the best compliment I think I would ever like. I've watched videos on YouTube of Enjoy the Silence live, and it's like, you know, that's a dream, dude.
It's like the start of like good techno that you can like, well, at least that I can really appreciate, you know?
Yeah, dude, your influences like Depeche Mode, New Order, there's a couple more that I can't remember.
Human League.
That is crazy, man. Hey, Mark, you got some knowledge there, hey?
Well, also, I feel like that's also why you and I connect quite well, because we've got similar old soul in us. You know?
I definitely, dude, wow. The 70s and 80s. I wish I could have lived in that.
Same, 100%.
Just imagine, dude. I mean, like life would be pretty tough for me. I mean, maybe if I was in South Africa at that time, but like just living in that age and being maybe in the US going to discos, dude.
I feel like I'd be a lot better with women as well, because like going out at that time with like that type of music, I reckon I would just be so myself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not like trying to like jump on the lyrics to like a Drake song that everyone knows and
exactly
like feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Who I am.
Yeah, like that's not me, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like with music, you sometimes have to go through like difficult emotions. Like you said, you weren't in the best place in your life, and neither was the person you're working with. And sometimes you need to be in a tough place to really produce good music, and sometimes just good art in general. And do you have like maybe a certain time in your life that you can remember, like a song or a genre of music really touched you at a time where you were struggling?
Yo, that's a very good question, dude. I think I enjoy being on this podcast just because of those types of thought processes. Like, I think a big influence for me to just start the journey of making music was I used to every band that could come to South Africa, I would use whatever money I could to go and see them. Like I've seen a lot of bands in South Africa, which is quite strange, because
Yeah.
we don't really we have a great pull when it comes to international artists, but we don't have like, it's not like every weekend that
Yeah.
you're going to see an international artist. So whenever there was an opportunity, I would go to see it. And I remember one concert specifically. Okay, granted, like my memory is a bit blurry from the concert, but there was
Yeah.
a feeling or an emotion that I had during it that was unrecognizable, dude. And it was Foster the People in 2016. And it was in the city with Mac Miller, Foster the People,
Wow.
and there was another artist.
And
I
that
don't
was
remember.
like what, like a year or two before Mac Miller died. It was
Yeah.
quite close. Yeah.
And Mac was incredible, dude. I mean, to be there and to witness like that type of wizardry. I don't know. I'll call it wizardry because he is like a magician. I don't know how to put it, dude.
Mm.
He is incredible. And then to see my favorite band, Foster the People, live, that changed everything for me, dude. That really made me more passionate about wanting to replicate my heroes. I want to make the same stuff that these guys are making. And when I realized I could, I was like, well, probably like I'm not tooting my own horn in that sense, but when I realized there was substance to what I was doing, and like other people started reacting to it, and they started giving me a bit of validation in that sense.
Yes.
Because like I said again, I am very fearful of putting myself out there. And the music allowed me to do so. And it wouldn't have been possible without Foster the People and Mac Miller. It was just a crazy like coincidence that those two artists came together at that one concert.
Yeah.
And then Mac passed away a couple of years later, and I have the privilege of saying that I got to witness Mac Miller live. It's quite crazy.
That's incredible, dude. And I feel like music is so unique to each individual. Everyone sees music in a different way. I mean, I used to think when I was younger, like all these like love songs and heartbreak songs and stuff on the radio, like you got your Neo, so sick of love songs. Like, yeah, like, I don't really get it. And then the first time I had my heart broken, I think that's where music really, really hit me. And I'd listen to these songs and it kind of felt like someone for once in my life really understood what I was going through. And that's where music is incredible, in that you're just listening on your headphones or on the radio or whatever, and it feels like that person is on your path with you and they understand what your mind's going through. And that for me is mind blowing.
I think if we were to give music as much credit as it deserves in terms of assistance with mental health, things like that, yeah, it would be well, it is. It's basically a norm in society now,
Yeah.
But it should be recognized a bit more, in my opinion. I think music can change lives, and that's what art is, right?
Yeah.
Art should be that type of influence to change someone's life and to either make it better or sometimes can make it worse as well. I mean, I don't know, people probably sometimes listen to Dani the band and they're like, oh man, this has ruined my day.
Well, I hope not.
You never know, dude. And that's the point, right? You
Mm.
got to put yourself out there artistically in order to stop that fear. It's quite a
Yes.
that experience for me being able to, and that's the advice that I would give somebody who's nervous about releasing art, whatever form of art it is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a song, whether it's a rap video. I don't know, dude. Put yourself out there. You get criticism.
Yeah.
It's tough to deal with, yeah, but at least you did.
I think it's different though, because for men compared to women, I think it's a lot harder for men to talk about emotions. Yes. And I'm going through a tough time. It's always, and I think it comes from the older generation where it's almost that get over it, bite the bullet, stiffen up that
Dude,
upper lip.
that
and
mentality pisses me off, dude. It's like, throw me a freaking bone, bro. Like, I understand that, okay, maybe you grew up in a different way,
yeah,
and maybe like you didn't cry when somebody passed away. I don't know. I'm using that's a terrible example to use, but I mean, like,
yes,
maybe you didn't cry when somebody shouted at you.
because you
But
thought it made you seem tougher on an exterior point
yeah,
of view. Yeah,
dude, each to your own, bro. But if I want to cry, let me cry.
yeah,
Why do you have to judge me for wanting to cry? And you're right, dude. In the mental health situation for men is always such a controversial topic, right? Because male privilege is a big thing,
yeah,
and it has been a big thing for a very long time. So there is that expectation to say to a man, you shouldn't feel upset because you haven't gone through problems in your life. Whereas women, at the end of the day, they have been they've been persecuted for a very long time and still continue to be persecuted
yes,
based on ridiculous things. So it's tough to be able to have that conversation, I feel, because you don't want to overstep boundaries and you don't want to feel sorry for a man at the end of the day. If you get where I'm coming from, does that make sense? But humans are humans. And if somebody's going through an issue, the best thing that somebody can do is firstly talk about it. And the best thing another person can do is be there to listen to that person.
yeah. Why do we struggle as men? Like, what do you think in general men are so afraid of?
I think it's the idea of impressing other people, right?
Yeah.
It's that thing that we were talking about earlier on. It's
Yes.
living up to the hype or the expectation that other people have from you. A man is supposed to be the breadwinner in a family,
Yeah.
A man is supposed to do this, and a man is supposed
Be
to do
able
that.
to work 2 jobs if he needs to,
and then you don't, like, you aren't that, and you then feel a sense of I haven't I feel I undervalue myself because I'm not doing what the next man is doing. So to answer your question, how do we, I think the to answer your question, I'll answer with another question, right? And I'll ask another question. How do we get out of that mindset, right? How do we realize that humans are humans? Reactions are reactions to things. You shouldn't feel bad about a reaction based on what society's norm of that situation is. How do we get out of that mindset? And it's just about talking.
yeah.
It's about having coffee charged conversations, apparently.
You're really doing my brand
Yeah.
well today. I appreciate
coffee charged
that.
conversations.
And do you think there is, because it's all good and well, there's always 2 sides to a coin. And I feel like we also can't just be emotional beings all the time. And there is time to open up. But do you think there perhaps are times where you do need to bite the bullet, stiffen up that upper lip? I know you hate the terms, but do you feel like there's ever situations where you actually just need to toughen up?
Well, we were talking about that Let Them
Yes.
podcast the other day. I think it's a brilliant method of not carrying a lot of emotional baggage when it comes to life. And that theory is very good, dude. Let other people do what they need to do. You've got your thing that you need to focus on. But again, like you said, it's two sides of the coin. You need to know when to be able to speak up about issues in your life and not feel embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you need to know when to shut up and not over. It's weird because you don't want to. It's almost like you don't want people to feel sorry for you, if you get what I mean.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's your problems that you're going through.
Yes.
So then sometimes talking about your problems can mean that this person might feel sorry for you.
Or they might worry about you. Sometimes, I mean, some cases they need to worry about you. And some cases, like my mom and I have a very good relationship, and we often talk about things very openly. And sometimes I will say all the things that I'm like struggling with, and my mom will be like, "Geez, Mike, are you like okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel fine. I just needed to get that off my chest, you know." And sometimes it is difficult because you don't want to open up too much to the point where people actually think you're a lot worse off than you are, but you do want to be able to say how you feel.
Yeah. And remember, we're not psychologists, eh? We're not psychiatrists.
Not
So
not
we don't
even
even
close.
yeah, we don't
Please
even know
do
what the
not take
right
my words
answers
for it.
are. I just think striving for objectivity in life is very important. It creates less opportunities for judgment
Yes.
towards other people, and it also creates less emotional reactions towards other people, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you know that maybe what somebody's saying is wrong, and you might know what somebody's saying is also right. So
Yes.
if you can find that balance of objectivity and just not be biased. I hate bias. I hate bias. I can't stand it, dude, because it's blatant and it's obvious. And what we need to do is get our minds out of that mindset of previous bias that has existed in the world, and move towards like accepting things like mental health awareness, for example, like what we were talking about. It's just a mind shift change that needs to happen. I still haven't accomplished it. I still fall back on previous mentality, or like a previous mentality that I had before, because I'm scared of change, I guess.
Yes.
And some things are just simpler this
It
way.
becomes like the default, going back into that personality that you know.
Yeah, and it becomes like this. You can't, like, it's a difficult thing to change, but it's changeable. It's very easily changeable. It's changeable in everyone. It's just about being simple, dude. It's about not being racist, for example. It's about not being discriminatory towards somebody based on their weight or something.
Yeah.
It's those types of things, dude, that we need to strive to change. And I guess humor messed that up, because humor created this idea of that these things were acceptable to joke about. And yeah, I guess some people are allowed to. They have comedic license, you know what I mean, to be able to make jokes about those things in a specific setting. You know, you're not a comedian all the time. And if somebody is affected, if somebody is affected by something, and you can see that when you say that to them, what does that mean for you? Like, do you not feel a sense of like guilt, you know?
Yeah.
If somebody reacts to you calling them fat or something like that, do you not feel like, oh man, I really hurt this person?
And I think some people are incapable of thinking that way. I mean, sometimes, I've been guilty of it many times in my life before. I'm not going to lie. But, you know,
Me too,
sometimes
dude, yeah.
you'll make a joke about someone in a certain situation, and you're around friends and whatever, and it's very funny. Everyone finds it hilarious. And for like maybe 2 or 3 seconds, you feel like cool again. And then you quickly go, wow, like, did I really just like ridicule that person or make them feel smaller? But because you can feel it.
Yeah, you can.
You
to
can
make
al-
myself feel better. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been guilty of that and a victim of that so much, dude. And it took a moment in, and it's very cliche as well, dude, but Black Lives Matter was huge for me.
Yeah.
I genuinely took a lot out of that experience. And I think going forward, to change everyone's mindset, you do need a bit of solidarity, and you do need a bit of you do need a big group of people coming together and being like, stop.
Yeah.
That's the only way it can happen. And we're going to have to get there eventually, or else, you know, I see myself as a very futile person at the same time, where I believe that there's no hope because of how shitty people are. And I'm not saying everyone, again, there are some good people, but looking at our history as human beings, dude, we're already scraping the barrel when it comes to the atrocities that have happened in the world, based on those types of discrimination, you know? Like, how do we change? And we've gotten better, but we're still not as good as we can be.
Yeah. And I would love to carry on chatting to you. I really would.
Me too.
I've really, really enjoyed this conversation, but it does have to come to an end at some point.
Dude.
And in closing, what is one lesson that you wish you learned earlier in life?
Yes, you put me on the spot here. I wish, one lesson that I wish I learned in life is that I wish I was kinder growing up. I wish I learned the ability to be kind. I think those people that have that ability are very special. To not fall into the norm or the status quo, you know, of tuning people, of being discriminatory, of all this stuff. Just to have the ability to be kind constantly. I wish I'd learned that growing up. I still haven't learned it, in all honesty. But that's something that I would have put a lot more focus on when I was younger.
I can see a kind heart within you, and I think it takes a lot to be as vulnerable as you were today. And honestly, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for today's conversation and just being so open. I mean, it's very difficult to talk about mental health, and sometimes as a guy, it's even harder. And I really loved this conversation. There's a lot that I want to take out of it for myself, and I hope a lot of people can do the same for themselves. I hope there's just one small thing that touched them in today's conversation. I want to thank Real Global Productions for once again letting us use this amazing studio. And
It's
yeah,
very dope.
it's been awesome.
Thanks,
Nikyle.
Mark. That was very cool. That was really cool. And thank you for giving me the opportunity, mate.